Thank you so much for coming today. My name is Katie O'Grady. I am a curator and I work currently as a curator of exhibitions and projects at the Glucksman in University College Cork. And we're here today in the context of Struàn Bell's solo exhibition, Pinky Ring. So just a bit of information about Struàn. So Struàn is a Scottish and Irish artist who's based in Cork and a member of Sample Studios. Bell's practice centres on the construction of symbolic and speculative forms, objects and scenes that inhabit a space between architecture, ritual and abstraction. Through sculpture, drawing, painting and writing, he explores how meaning is projected onto material and how speculative objects and architectures can hold some form of meaning or belief without revealing their function. So within this solo exhibition, Struàn has a series of plaster reliefs that are carved that I guess think about these ideas of speculative function, symbolic architectures, and ideas of meaning and prescription of meaning. And I guess maybe to open up the conversation, I wanted to bring back to something that you spoke to me personally about how the show came about after the gift of a ring. So maybe would you like to speak a bit about that and the context of it?
Thank you for the lovely introduction.
No problem.
The show kind of came about from kind of a pre-show love for jewellery, which has kind of been around for my entire life. But specifically, more recently, the idea of like prescribing kind of personal meaning onto something like a ring. And that kind of idea of like this very personal, like bestowing of something like so big and like so meaningful for somebody, and it's represented in this tiny little object. And I was doing a mentorship with a friend of mine in Brussels last year, and he gave me this ring, this red ring. And I just thought it was like the most lovely thing. And it meant so much to me. It was a huge moment for me in my practice as well, like kind of growing this friendship with an artist who is like, you know, super established and, you know, well known, but also like just also my friend. And it was like a really touching gesture for me, I suppose, receiving that ring. And yeah, like the idea of, I guess, the stones as well in the ring. There's like this ring kind of symbolizes or means so much to me and symbolizes so much gravity, and like there's like so much that goes into it, and it's just this tiny little object. And I was kind of thinking about this ring for ages, like before I had the show, and I had like received a big body of funding, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna buy a piece of jewelry for myself to, you know, mark the occasion, I suppose. And it's when I was thinking about doing that, I kind of came to the realization that like, oh my God, like I've never kind of explored that in my own practice. Mm-hmm. That idea of like getting something for yourself or receiving something that has all this meaning in it, that is just this little decorative object. But yeah, that's like the catalyst for the entire show.
Wonderful. And I suppose maybe could you speak a tiny bit about your process of making these works? Like I know your practice very well as somebody who draws. You're very skilled at drawing and you very much take it on as almost like a draftsman. But even though the works are very sculptural, they have such considered compositions. So perhaps you could maybe elaborate on where those compositions come from. Are they always imaginative? Are they based upon memory? Or do they come about through an act of making in and of itself?
Yeah, there's always a drawing. There's always drawing first. Drawing to me is like I do it every single day. I'm never kind of not thinking about these like little diagrams and things. In terms of like draftsmanship, I guess I always approach everything like from some sort of architectural lens. Architecture has been like a huge part of my practice for forever, but like especially since college, and my undergrad show was all architecture based. These like big plaster cast buildings that I had designed, and they all also like started off as drawing, but also a lot of writing also, and I usually write little like stories and stuff that go along with the works. But yeah, in terms of like the visual, I suppose, language of the reliefs, they all kind of come from this joy that I have looking at diagrams and that kind of like diagrammatic universal language of arrows and little notes on things, and I really loved those diagrams. I used to have this book when I was a kid, and it was like how machines worked, and they were like sliced up, and then there was all these little people like running around. It would be like an engine or something, and then there would be all these like tiny little workmen like walking around with their little hats and like showing like all the different parts of the engine. And I always thought about them as like architecture, and these little guys kind of running around this space. I just always loved that it was such a universal language, that anybody could kind of understand what an arrow means, or what it's doing, or even not even what it's doing, but like what it could be doing, or what it's suggesting.
Yeah, and I think your works really speak to that, of this, we almost feel like they're telling us something, or they're guiding us towards some sort of diagrammatic or an instruction of some sort that seems a bit occluded or lost. And I just kind of wonder, like, do the titles perhaps, because again, you speak about writing, and I know you mentioned to me too, like some maybe more personal stories that are attached to some of the works. And do you feel that in a way, the kind of imagined scenarios are relational to the titles in each one? Like perhaps, for instance, I know you spoke about the figs on the floor.
Yeah, I guess some of the works are drawn from personal things in my life, like the cat, or I don't know, the self-portrait, but I have never really worked from like a deeply like personal vantage, I suppose. Like, not to say that my previous work was impersonal, but it was more so like potentially like more design focused and not about me. So for this show, I really wanted to do something different. I wanted to like make work that was more autobiographical. So I kind of wanted to, I didn't want to do like a series of works telling the story of my life or something. That's just like never something that I would ever want to do. But I think with mostly the subtitles of the work, I wanted them to allude to something personal to me. And that's again where the title comes from. It's the subtitle of the self-portrait is Pinky Ring. And it was like, that's the perfect title for the show. But I mean, the figs, it's the work over here, and it's the stone, I suppose, the iolite reminded me of the color of the figs that would be on the floor, like on the pavement, when I was a kid visiting my family in Portugal. And that's such a intense memory that I have, is like all these like squished figs from people walking on them. So figs are on the ground, again, is kind of, it's a way of also telling time, I suppose, within the work. It's like I know I'm like where I am and what time of the year it is because there's figs on the ground. Or the work the subtitle is Cheese and Grapes. It's like a food I used to eat on summer holidays, with my family. It's just small things like that. I was like, I want them to be kind of tender, the subtitles, and then the more kind of, I guess, analytic foretitles, or the raspberry liqueur in that work. The subtitle is a memory that I have of my mom and her birthday. Someone like put Chambord in her champagne, and she got really drunk, and it was just really funny. Sorry, Mom, but yeah, just small like kind of like intimate memories, I suppose. I wanted them to kind of be there in the work.
I think there's one work in particular that I really, really love. I mean, I do adore them all, but I think it's Pod Mermaid's Purse, which is this very tiny one over here. And I think the idea of mermaid purses are kind of these beautiful objects, which obviously are like egg casings, sharks and typical creatures that you might find on a beach. And you spoke to me about how you find them as a child. There's something kind of interesting there about this idea of childhood and kind of maybe before everything is explained to you, and you kind of have this possibility of an openness of imagination or interpretation. Do you feel that maybe through your works and this exploration of meaning that feels very deeply integral to it, is that something that you're trying to return to a little bit maybe? Is that type of feeling in like childhood?
Yeah, I think so. I honestly think that I don't really need to return to it, because I think that I still think like that quite a lot. That kind of like, I almost prefer when there's not as much explanation around some sort of concept or something, because it means that I get to have fun, I guess, in my own imagination. And like, I would consider myself like extremely imaginative in that way. Like, I have a very active imagination, and none of the works are really taken from like reference, apart from like maybe the self-portrait and the cat, but apart from that, it's like just drawing and thinking of like little worlds that people might live in, or scenarios or machines or systems that don't exist. I think that's probably why I returned as well to memories from my like early childhood in a lot of the works, is because, you know, I feel really connected to my childhood still, and I had a really great upbringing, and it was like, my mother is like super adventurous and outdoorsy, so we would do loads and loads of things, and I have loads of really special memories that I don't want to forget, and I don't want to get rid of them. So yeah, it's not so much like returning to that, it's like kind of maintaining it. And the like, you know, the only thing I can think of is like, I love reading like lore from like books and movies, or like, you know, whatever it is. And there might be some like huge event that happens in this world, and I want to know like every consequence, you know, that had. And when you're not given that immediate explanation, kind of like when you're a kid, you just get to like run wild with, you know, what could have happened, how would the people have reacted at the time, or, you know, what kind of domino effect would that have had on, I don't know, government or something. So like that idea of consequence, I think, is really entwined into the like childlike, not naivety, but lack of knowledge and things, which I actually really cherish.
It's interesting because I do feel like, and I guess the inclusion of the arrows and these kind of slight bits toward movement within the works is very much on that precipice of consequence. Constantly, it's almost like something's about to happen, which is really interesting. Something which I really do want to highlight, which I know is new in your work, is your use of colour. Because you're very much somebody who works a lot in maybe like greys or black and white. So how did you find approaching colour within this work, and maybe why did you choose to do so?
God, I think I always have this feeling that I need to paint, and I'm no good with colour theory or like mixing paint. Like I'm actually, like I've tried to learn so much.
It definitely doesn't seem that way.
Well, I don't know. It's just like, it's something that I've always kind of wanted to do. And some of my favorite artists, like all-time favorites, are like people that work with huge amounts of color. And I've just like always had more of I've been more drawn in my own practice to very like stark, cold, I suppose, palettes, but then in like my personal taste, it's like the complete opposite. But a lot of the sketches for the works that are here kind of started as thumbnails for paintings. And I kind of found myself like, I would like sit down with like a board or a canvas or something, and I would just like hate doing it. I think it's the act of like carving and having something to like go around was something that I really value within my own practice. So I was speaking with Eve, the curator here, and this is like months ago, like early on, and I was like, talking about the work for the show, and I was like, oh, I painted one of the works with ink, and you know, I actually really like it. I'm like really happy with how it looks, but I don't know if it would look silly with all the works, because these were all just plaster. They were not painted or treated or anything. And Eve was kind of like, I think I literally just needed one person to tell me like, just do it anyway. And then I was like, okay, so I just like started buying like different treat. I didn't want to just do paint because plaster is like so porous and absorbent that I was like, oh, there's like probably huge potential here for, you know, kind of experimenting with different materials. So I started with like wood stain, and that's what the mermaid's purse is painted with, and inks, like alcohol-based inks, and then that kind of went on to like oil pastels, and there is some oil paint as well, and like flocking, and like vintage reclaimed goat hide, and wax and glaze, and I just like started going like crazy with it, because I was like, oh, I'm just gonna like have loads of fun with it, because it was, you know, carving plaster is like such a serious process, which I love, and I love those moments of like real kind of, you know, like monastic sort of like laboring away and like sanding and stuff. But then I would bring them home to like my home studio and be able to just like be like, okay, I'm gonna do this like orange blob here, and I'm gonna put this here. And the palette, I think I got to learn, I'm like a huge Francis Bacon fan, and his palette is like my favorite palette to ever exist, ever. So I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna like borrow some of the colors from that, because they like really have always, since I was a kid, like really spoken to me. So it's just like, you know, this orange and red and this like random like bright blue. And then I kind of just like went from there. That was kind of like, you know, you kind of have to copy until you find your...
Oh, totally. I think everybody does that as well. That's a big part of any art making practice. I'm interested as well in kind of like, you touched upon it there a bit, but like the textures of some of the work. So like flocking or kind of use of fur, and a lot of it tends to be on these kind of undefinable objects. Like I can see like there's two in the background there, and it's like they almost appear like stones or kind of blobs that are almost a bit animalistic. Did you feel like they kind of inherently held that type of texture to you, or did it kind of come about through the process of working with that actual composition itself?
I think it's a bit of both. Like I think when I'm thinking about sculpture, I'm first thinking about form. And I've always been like really drawn to, you know, like the Henry Moores and the Barbara Hepworths and the Arps, and you know, these kinds of like blobby kind of super mid-century sculptural forms, but a little bit more towards like some sort of organic or like, you know, biological, maybe some sort of like figurative thing. And that usually then influences the texture, or that influences the treatment, I suppose. And yeah, I think it really depends, I suppose. I think with these ones, like they're kind of diagrams for floor sculptures that I would like to make. And I want to make these like big, you know, pebble-shaped, furry, like hide-covered forms. And I kind of originally wanted to do it for this show, but it was like, no, I'll just do like a drawing of them in plaster and hint to their, I guess, surface with like, just cut a piece of this goat hide and put it on it to kind of suggest texture.
And do you think that like a lot of the objects within your kind of, I guess, reliefs and your drawings, they're all almost like possibilities of sculpture in some sort of way? They all kind of exist within, I guess, like the world of your own sculptural or artistic language.
I think as well, like that's why basically all of them are on a plane, like they're sitting on something. For me, it's like I draw like 99% more sculptures than I make. Do you know what I mean? So and I love that. I love just like drawing little ideas of sculpture and kind of, I guess, they don't have to just exist as drawings. And they exist now as sculptures, but just not. They're like they're sculptural depictions of the sculptures, I suppose, which maybe I'll make them and maybe I won't, because maybe I already have sort of made them within the context that they're in now.
That's an interesting question. Yeah, does it feel like working through this type of process? So I guess if you normally work from a drawing perspective and then maybe making like a 3D fully, I guess, like out sculptural work as opposed to a relief, do they feel like they're resolved now because they're in the relief?
I don't know. I feel like I wouldn't be as satisfied with them if they were, like if there was this tripod form was here. I don't know if I would like it as much as
existing
this kind of like semi-archaic, like timing, like speculative time object, like a relief carving kind of is. I don't know if I would like it as much as how it is now, because I'm like trapped as like a sculptor who loves painting, but I don't want to do any painting. I like only want to do sculpture. So I think that that's kind of like its optimal thing. And maybe one day I'll make it and maybe I'll love it, but I know that I'm at least happy that it already exists in this form and it's still sculpture for me.
There's an interesting thing there with this idea of like the kind of diagrammatic that feels unresolved, and then I guess like the kind of drawing or making of sculptures that are then never maybe fully the sculpture intended in your mind at the beginning of it. I think with the reliefs as well, there's something amazing about how you framed each of the kind of compositions. Maybe if you'd speak a bit about that, like some of them feel to be in these kind of vaulted, like this feels very like an arched window, maybe you might see in a church. Others feel very like in hallways, again, maybe like framed as if a painting. Or is there different reasons why you've chosen this?
I think it was more so, I had an idea for a general composition, or it's the shape in which that it was drawn in my sketchbook. And, all of them are cast slabs of plaster. And I kind of just wanted to translate them, I guess, as they were in my sketchbook. So like most of the time, things are drawn in my sketchbook within a box, but then sometimes it's like in these kind of vaulted views, like a view from an arcade or something, I love the idea of like looking out of a window and seeing a scene happening from that perspective,
Kind of through a threshold.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah. So some of them I think kind of came from general like framing, like this, like there's like a clear frame happening. And then some of them I maybe considered a bit more what was happening outside of the composition,
So I'd like to bring it back maybe a little bit to the gemstones. And I mean, gemstones are always kind of an unusual thing, or we imbue a lot of meaning as humans to different types. Sometimes seen as almost like talismans or protection or luck, or some are related to things like love or courage. And I wonder, did you choose the stones in each composition based upon some of these kind of meanings, or was it more fluid and maybe color-wise?
It was definitely a lot more fluid. I didn't consider the stones in terms of their kind of like meaning that they have generally, that like anyone could kind of relate to. I guess like a lot of them there's a lot of garnets in the show, and that came from the ring that I was gifted in Belgium. It has 3 garnets in it, so I wanted to, just for myself, I suppose, use that. With the emeralds and the eyes, it's just because the cat had green eyes, and I was like, because this one is for my mother, so I was like, oh, I want it to be something more special. So I suppose a little bit, yeah, like in terms of value, emeralds these are probably the most valuable stones in the show, and it's because I wanted it to be like in something that was a gift that I was giving to somebody, But apart from that, I mean, I was like, I wanted ones that were yellow because I wanted them to look like cheese. So I was like, okay, I'll get some citrines and some carnelians. But I mean, I have a huge love for gemstones, but it's kind of purely aesthetic. I don't know anything about their like healing properties that people might believe in, or things like this. And I'm glad that it's a material that some people can come and see, and they have that interpretation of like the stones. That's their bias, I suppose. But I mean, I'm totally open to that interpretation as well. Just for me, it was more so, it's part of the palette for me, but it's also important that they're kind of like these little like concentrated objects, or like that they complement the compositions, but that they're also, they're so clearly added. Do you know what I mean? So I wanted them to be able to stand, in themselves, I suppose.
And I know as well that you used maybe some of, let's say, the kind of language of jewellery, or visual language of jewellery, is what I might describe it as. Maybe thinking, I know you described about like on the side of a watch. If you want to maybe chat about that.
Yeah, I love objects that are like highly decorated. And I don't really like have any. I don't actually like them that much for myself. I just love looking at them. And I've always thought that like that traditional like blue stone on the side of on the turny thing on the watch, I just like always loved how that looked, and that it was like not immediate. You didn't see it like immediately. It was like on the side of something. And I guess I always found it quite gratifying to like make the extra effort to look on the side of something and see a stone, or see a detail that someone put in that they didn't necessarily, that they knew that people wouldn't notice unless they looked for it, I suppose.
Yeah, so I think because some of the works, actually the stones are almost like on the sides of the pieces, again, like kind of alluding to that.
And it also kind of came from, I was like looking at the composition, and I was like, I don't know where to put this.
So you're going to interrupt the actual composition as well.
Yeah, so I was like, that's perfect, because I wanted to put one on the side, so that's perfect, I'll put it on the side.
I want to return a tiny bit to maybe ideas of like meaning and giving things meaning. And again, this idea of like unresolved diagrams, and maybe, are you wanting to maybe intentionally like confuse a viewer, or are you kind of not interested in an interpretation?
I think that it kind of calls back again to like when you're a kid and you don't understand something, you have, maybe 2 or 3 steps of something that you can understand, and then you don't know what happens after that. And it's never really my intention to make people look at the work and kind of come up with something themselves. It's just, I'm doing it for myself. Like when I'm making the work and I'm making these like speculative functional diagrams of systems that are unclear, it's an exercise in something that I love, because I'll make it and then look at it and be like, I don't know what it does, but I come up with all these different ideas, and like then they become like details of a larger system or a machine or something. So I would say it's not my intention to confuse, it's more so my intention to let people decide, I guess, themselves. Or, you know, they can, like, you can make it up yourself, that's fine.
And is that kind of what you'd hope people would take away when they come in to see the show as well?
Yeah, I guess. I don't really know what I want people to think about the work, but I mean, I would... At the opening, I had a couple of people asking me, a lot of people were asking me about the arrows and about the like diagrams more so. And they were like, you know, telling me what they thought it would do. And I was like, that's
that must
so
be interesting.
awesome.
Yeah.
I was like, that's so cool because I don't know what it does. So like, I'm not like I am the creator, but I don't know what it does.
You don't have the answer to
I don't
it.
have the answer.
Yeah.
But I love that because that's like my favorite thing in the whole world is to like, you know, read about something small and then like imagine what the rest of it is, the consequence of something or the things that led up to it or just like its function. I guess like I much prefer an open-ended functionality, I suppose.
I wonder, you definitely spoke about it at the start, and it's something that we've talked about quite a lot, but it's this idea of friendship. And I think it's something that I know obviously is an undercurrent in the show based upon, I guess, like the gift, which initially maybe sparked the idea, and then also like the worker in the corner, and I'm going to murder the name of this, and you can maybe finish it for me, but it's called My Glass. No, I won't even do it.
Chateauneuf de Pape.
Chateauneuf de Pape. I'm very bad at French. And I guess kind of thinking about that work in particular, you spoke about this idea of like the gemstone in it is this last drop of a drink that you might share with a friend, and that moment of kind of like, I guess, connection. So maybe would you speak a tiny bit about what friendship means to your practice or to this body of work or in general in an art making sense?
I mean, I think like I'm very lucky to have like really, really close friends, and it's like, I mean, like everybody has friends, but I feel like my friendships are like a huge part of my everyday life. And like I live with 3 of my close friends. Friendship to me is like, it's more important than kind of everything. I'm my happiest when I'm like around my friends and my partner and with other people, and I have a huge like personal passion for wine and winemaking. So usually when I'm with friends, there's often wine, and it's like a visual symbol, like a visual kind of metaphor for me, seeing a glass of like wine on the table, and it has that like, you know, you've tried to get every drop of wine out of the thing, but there's always somehow some like residual red wine in the bottom of the glass. But even like for yourself and myself, like as like I suppose like arts professionals, our relationship is friendship completely, and then we work together sometimes. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like I've gotten to make some really amazing friends through like working as a technician, and I've gotten to meet some great artists. I mean, that's how I met Casper in Brussels, and like Mary and Bridget, like all these like amazing people that are now my friends. And that's through, you know, just like asking them if they want to go for lunch with me, or, you know, things like that. But yeah, I mean, like the first work that I made for this show is the self-portrait, and then I immediately gifted it to my friend Marianne, because I was like, I want you to have it. I just like I want my friends to be a part of kind of everything, I suppose, that I do. Even because in the studio it's such a lonely thing. And I love that. I love being alone in the studio. But then after that, I'm like, okay, I'm like done being alone now. Like I need to go and hang out with my friends. Like I'd even just like sit in the living room for like 2 hours and watch something. You know, I just like love being around my friends.
Yeah, I think there's an interesting idea there of, I know writer Celine Condrelli and artist Celine Condrelli speaks about it quite a lot, of like this idea of friendship in art making practices with each other, but also being a friendship of your own art practice, which is just an interesting idea and kind of opening up that kind of relationality of it. And it feels very pertinent to these works when you think about ideas of preciousness and importance. And I mean, I guess like an object like a piece of jewellery or a gemstone feels very much like the reason why it grows its importance is because of its relation to something or to somebody else. So I think it's interesting to think about art objects in that way as well.
Yeah, I think only recently, since the work has become a bit more personal, that I've become friends with my practice, you know. Previously, I feel like my practice was like a lecturer that I was trying to impress or something. It was this like foreboding sort of like really serious sort of thing, and it still is, but I feel like I smile more now with the work or something, do you know what I mean? I'm like not as, I would put a work on the wall or something and stand back and just be like so pissed off at it or something, do you know what I mean? But now I'm like, okay, like I'm softer on it, I think. And I think that's just a reflection on like I'm less hard on myself, but still very critical.
I wonder as well, that kind of maybe relates a bit to ideas of, you know, as being an emerging artist in Ireland. And obviously this wonderful opportunity through Palace here. But maybe if you want to speak a bit about that experience, because I think you are someone who I know is amazing at kind of taking opportunities and going for them. And I think it's always lovely to share what that is like for others as well.
I agree. I think it's important to be transparent and not to kind of, I suppose, gatekeep experiences or anything. But for myself, I just was like, I knew for years that I wanted to be an artist. Like that's all that I wanted to do. Like I originally went into college to study fashion, and that's when I realized like, no, I need to be in the studio. Painting at the time is what I thought I wanted to do. But yeah, I guess like straight out of college, I just went into tech work with Eva, and then Limerick City Gallery, and then moved to Cork, and then started in the Glucksman with you, and have always like been, I suppose, engaged in the Irish art world since I left college, and then just through that just applied for literally everything. So I was like, there's no harm in doing it. Every time, in my mind, I'm like, every time I write an application, it's better. So, and then I just like started getting stuff and then just did it. And I was like, that was so easy, guys. I don't know. But it wasn't actually. It was very hard.
I think that's always it. Like it takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of trying and knocking on doors for a long time.
But you have I'm like extremely shy, and I have to just pretend to be somebody else, I suppose, when I'm applying for all these things, and just be like the most confident person ever. And
I think we all do that as well, don't you?
And I'm like at my computer, like shaking, like writing an email to them. But yeah, I think, and just like, it's like such terrible advice, because it's like, it does, like everybody says it, but just like apply for everything and try and do as much as you can, while also preserving your mental health and keeping time for yourself. And
I think an integrity to your own interests and practice as well. Like
apply for everything that applies to you, I suppose. Like, you know, don't go for the like architectural biennale if you're you do crochet flowers or something, you know what I mean? But like, you know, well, maybe, I don't know. See, this is where it gets complicated, I suppose.
I wonder if you might speak a tiny bit about some influences that you have. So you touch a lot on, I guess, different ideas of things, maybe like definitely Francis Bacon, and then also kind of alluding a tiny bit to maybe like science fiction, I feel, a little bit.
Very much.
Maybe if you want to expand a bit on that.
Yeah, I think just like anything that has like really dense lore is something that I really gravitate towards. a lot of painters, like a lot of contemporary Belgian painters at the moment I'm like obsessed with. A lot of film, I'm like a big film person, a lot of books. Like it's kind of just like a jumble of loads of different things. Like I love going to the like natural history museums wherever I am and like taking pictures of all the feathers on all the taxidermy birds, because I'm like, there's so many great colors in there and texture and patterns. I think that my influences are they're actually like mostly based in some sort of like science fiction space, but it's more so the ideas of like culture, governance, systems, I suppose, within these like made up worlds. And then also like very intimate architecture and these like tiny spaces within these like, then the opposite, these massive buildings, like Piranesi and like
kind of impossible architectures.
And like Etienne Louis Boulet and these kind of like paper architects that never built anything but had such awesome, literally awesome ideas. They're always kind of in the back of my mind, I guess, when I'm working.
Yeah, I think that's definitely very evident throughout the works as well. I guess maybe as kind of a final question, I might just ask, and you slightly touched on it too earlier, but where do you see your practice going now? Are you going to maybe continue this kind of work within reliefs or move back towards drawing or maybe a mixture?
I think so. I think I will continue with the reliefs. I really like doing them and I like how they look. I do want to do more floor sculpture like I was saying earlier. And I just came back from a residency where I only drew the whole time and it was like so nice because I could wear anything I wanted to the studio. And
they're very beautiful drawings.
Oh, thank you. So I'll be doing a lot more drawing, I think, during the summer, and then I have some residencies coming up, so I think I'll take that opportunity to make bigger work.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Struan.
Thank you.
Thank you. So just open. Oh, thank you.